Mandela, Thabo Mbeki. And then we came to Zuma. Yeah, Uzuma, we started nicely in Polokwane. Zajiki izinto. And then we then had all sorts of things that you don't want to imagine and think about, which actually happened. And Uzuma, you can point at things like I have pointed at Mbeki in terms of his collective. You will find it difficult. Positives are outweighed by the negatives. Under that administration, the ANC managed to address the issue of HIV and AIDS in a big way under Zuma. But from there, everything else was ravished. Life expectancy increased. And I know now I must take this thing out because Zuma people switch it off.
You must have watched the video of ANC Secretary-General Fikile Mbalula standing before the crowd, microphone in hand, his voice rising and falling as he spoke about one of South Africa's most polarizing political figures, Jacob Zuma. It started off as a moment of reflection on the legacy of ANC presidents, but soon became one of those viral clips that leave people debating in taxis, at taverns, and across social media timelines. Mbalula, always the showman, listed off the greats, Nelson Mandela, Thabo Mbeki, and then, almost reluctantly, Jacob Zuma. But the real shock came when he admitted, on stage, that Zuma's positives were outweighed by the negatives. And just as his words began to stir murmurs among the audience, Mbalula seemed to switch off his own microphone, mid-sentence. Whether that was by accident or on purpose, no one knows. But the symbolism wasn't lost on anyone. A man once known for defending Zuma with fire and fury was now silencing himself as he spoke of the very man who once lifted him to power. This moment was more than a simple speech. It was a glimpse into the ANC's uneasy relationship with its own history. Mbalula acknowledged that under Zuma's presidency, South Africa made significant strides in the fight against HIV and AIDS. It's true, Zuma's administration, despite all its chaos, expanded access to antiretroviral treatment more than any other government before it. That decision saved millions of lives. But, as Mbalula put it, from there, everything else was ravaged. Now, what did he mean by that? Well, he was talking about the damage that followed, the years of corruption scandals, the state capture inquiries, the hollowing out of institutions, and the public's growing distrust of government. For many South Africans, Zuma's presidency represents a painful contradiction, a time when the poorest gained access to healthcare and grants, yet the country lost billions to looting and mismanagement. Mbalula's comment drew laughter from some, discomfort from others. For the ANC faithful, it's almost taboo to criticize Zuma publicly, especially in a party still battling to keep KwaZulu-Natal under its influence. But this wasn't the first time Mbalula took a jab at Zuma. Since the 2024 elections, where the MK party, Zuma's new political home, cut deep into ANC support, Mbalula has been trying to reassert control of the narrative. His words are part apology, part warning. Zuma may be gone from Luthuli House, but his shadow still lingers over it. And here's where it gets interesting. The same Mbalula who once defended Zuma during the height of Nkandla and the Gupta scandals now positions himself as the custodian of ANC renewal. It's almost as if the Secretary-General is rewriting history, trying to separate the current ANC from the Zuma era, to convince voters that the corruption, the chaos, and the factionalism were all part of a bad chapter that has since been closed. But let's be honest, it's not that simple. The ANC is still haunted by Zuma's legacy. His loyalists didn't disappear. They regrouped. Many of them are now in the MK party, campaigning under the banner of a radical economic transformation, a slogan once championed inside the ANC itself. Every time Mbalula speaks about Zuma, it reminds South Africans that the ruling party is still at war with its own history. But the timing of this speech also matters. With the new government balancing on fragile ground, and the DA breathing down the ANC's neck in every policy debate, Mbalula's remarks seem like an attempt to reassure the middle ground, to say, we know where we went wrong, and we're fixing it. Yet it's hard to fix something that still divides your own house. When Mbalula said Zuma's positives are outweighed by the negatives, he wasn't just talking about one man. He was talking about an entire decade that reshaped South Africa's political culture. The rise of populism, the distrust of institutions, the culture of patronage, all of it took root during that era. But what many forget is that Zuma didn't act alone. The system that enabled him is still in place, and many of the people who once cheered for him are still sitting comfortably in parliament and cabinet positions today. And let's not forget the irony. Mbalula himself owes much of his rise to the Zuma years. He was among the so-called young lions who were elevated during that period, part of the generation that benefited from Zuma's political style, fiery, populist, unapologetic. So when he criticizes Zuma now, it raises questions: is this genuine reflection or political survival? The crowd that day seemed to sense that contradiction. Some clapped. Others folded their arms. A few even laughed when Mbalula's mic went silent, as if the universe was reminding him that talking about Zuma never ends quietly. Still, his comments open up a necessary conversation about how South Africans remember their leaders. Every president leaves behind a complicated legacy. Mandela symbolized unity and forgiveness. Mbeki represented intellect and growth but also denialism. Zuma's chapter is one of charisma and collapse, a man who connected deeply with ordinary people but oversaw some of the most damaging years of state decay. Yet, despite it all, Zuma remains a political force. The MK party's rise proves that millions still feel he was treated unfairly, that he was scapegoated for problems much bigger than him. And that's what frustrates Mbalula and the current ANC leadership. They're trying to move forward, but Zuma keeps pulling the conversation back to the past. Perhaps that's why Mbalula's microphone suddenly went off. Maybe it wasn't just a technical glitch, maybe it was poetic. The ANC is trying to silence its own guilt, to rewrite the script of its decline. But you can't mute history. Zuma's name still echoes in every political fight, every campaign speech, and every courtroom case tied to the state capture years. And if Mbalula truly believes that Zuma's negatives outweigh his positives, then the question remains, who should take responsibility for allowing those negatives to flourish in the first place? The party? The system? Or all of them together? What's clear is that this brief speech has reignited old tensions. It reminded South Africans that the ANC's internal wounds haven't healed. Behind the smiles and slogans, there's still a cold war between the reformists and the loyalists. And as long as Zuma's name still draws crowds, whether in rallies or in headlines, the ANC will continue to struggle with its own reflection. So, whether Mbalula meant to or not, that moment, microphone off, words hanging in the air, captured the ANC perfectly, a party that knows what it wants to say, but can't quite find the voice to say it. If you enjoyed this breakdown and you want more deep dives into South Africa's political drama, from the GNU debates to the ongoing Zuma-Mbalula saga, make sure to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts below. Do you think Mbalula was being honest about Zuma's legacy, or was he just trying to distance himself from a past he helped create? See you next time.